Ariel.
I'm Shya.
And today, it just gets
Easier.
In case you haven't noticed yet, we do finish each other's sentences.
To finish each other's sentences.
Yes, we do.
But we're not competitive.
What?
It's not a rush to finish each other's sentences. It's just that after being together for almost 39 years, that's amazing, we've seemed to think along the same lines. We see, actually it's less think and it's more see what's happening in our environment. And so it's a mutual expression of what is, rather than a competition to prove we're no more or smarter than one another.
What's really interesting, though, is occasionally you'll say something or I'll say something that will take a conversation in a different direction.
Yes.
And in general, that's simple. It's easy. It's a yes. You just step into where your life is going.
Follow it where it's going. Exactly.
And occasionally it's discordant. Something strikes funny or it doesn't feel right. And then, of course, we discuss it. But in general...
And we're willing to tell the truth about what we see or sense or feel or think. And that allows for a completion to take place if you're both listening. See, listening is a critical element to enlightenment. Listening pulls you into the current moment of your life. But listening isn't seeing whether you agree or disagree. Listening is a hearing what another person's saying as though it's absolutely accurate. And from their point of view, it is.
It's harder to listen when you're upset. And if you find yourself having a hard time listening, it is entirely likely you are upset. Because somebody can say something that's inaccurate or doesn't dovetail with your experience.
You know, the moon is blue.
Well, there is a blue moon once every while.
It never really gets blue. Okay. They call it a blue moon, but it never turns blue like that's neon true. Blue. You know.
But if you're upset, you would take exception to that statement.
Right, and it would mean something, and you'd get energized to disagree. See, listening isn't about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about hearing what another person has to say. It's about bringing your attention to the current moment of your life, not to the thoughts you have about what you should have, could have, would have done differently if you were more enlightened.
It really requires letting go of, this is a really good, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Your train of thought. Train of thought
is on rails.
You have thoughts that are queued up one after you've got one car and the next car and then and they're all linked and the train is going through, and when it's going through you don't hear anything. But if you let go, if you just set it aside and allow yourself to listen,
which requires not going anywhere. It requires being where you are. And it's not difficult. It's just that you're not used to being a herd of cats.
You mean your thoughts are
your thoughts are like a herd of cats. You can't control them. They just happen. But maybe you can control your thoughts. Maybe you can discover how to get here. And here is outside your thoughts. Here is this moment of your life.
There was something you said earlier, and I want to circle back around to it because I think it's a very important part of what we're talking about today. And part of what makes it just get easier. And that is honesty. When you're honest with yourself, I'm not necessarily talking about copying it to whoever you're with, but when you're honest with yourself.
I didn't understand what you just said.
Well, I think sometimes people think if they're honest, then they have to blurt out things to whomever around them rather than being straightforward with yourself. Oh, look, I'm upset.
Right.
Or, oh, life isn't going the way I want. Or,
okay.
And in honesty is also kindness. Because if you see something and then you're immediately hard on yourself about it, that has nothing to do with honesty. That has to do with being hard on yourself.
Well, that has to do with your conditioning. See, we've been taught in the cultures we grew up in that unless you're hard on yourself, you never excel, you never get better, you never become a good person. Well, maybe that's wrong. Maybe you don't need to beat on yourself. Maybe you should be kind to yourself and see what happens then, because you've tried beating on yourself forever. They call it New Year's resolutions.
You know, we have a friend, and I won't mention her name nor her son's name because at some point he may be listening to this, because these tend to live for a long time. But she gave her son a bath. He's very young. He's like a year and a half old. He came running out of the bath, very proud of his naked body. And then he realized he had to poop. So he squatted on the living room floor, pooped, and then he went over to watch cartoons. Being hard on him was not a necessary step to cleaning it up, nor to teach him not to do that. I guarantee you when he's 6, when he's 7, when he's 15, he's not going to run out of the bathroom naked, poop on the floor, and go watch cartoons. You will naturally grow without being hard on yourself about the things that you disapprove of.
You know, I was taking a shower, and I looked at my hand, and about a week ago, when I was cleaning the stove, the grill top, I had a sharp edge on it, and I cut my finger right by my knuckle. And I looked at it today, and it's healed itself. I mean, it's 90% healed. It's healed itself. Your body heals itself. You don't have to tell your heart to pump. You don't have to tell your lungs to breathe. It does it automatically. There's a lot of things you don't think about and don't have to control, and things get taken care of, like your body healing itself.
But there is something you need to tell.
What?
You need to tell our guest that she can come in now.
Okay.
Let's ask her. We have a guest. Her name is Naz. Welcome to the show, Naz.
Oh, hello, Ariel and Shya. This is Naz from Cheshunt in the UK. And yeah, it's really great to be with you today.
It's great to be with you too. And I imagine people are very familiar with your voice since you have been kind enough to do some of the announcements in the middle of our show. So,
it's such a pleasure. I find your shows and your seminars just very supportive, and actually particularly supportive in the last few months and the last few days, which brings me to my question. My question is, the title of the show, It Gets Easier, is I was wondering, does it ever get easier to come in and out of upset? And the last few days, my stepfather was taken to hospital. He was very poorly. And clearly, I'm upset.
I don't know that that's the only reason you're upset.
Okay.
See, I happen to have been on a birthday call with your husband. You were there, of course, and his family was there. And I was taken by how beautiful his daughters were from a previous marriage. But I was also taken by the upset that was happening in that space. And I don't know whether that was prior to your father-in-law going into the hospital.
Right. Okay.
You see, your upset may have started before you realized that you got upset. And once you start slipping, it's easy to slide down that mountain.
Now, the other thing is, and it's apparent from your question, and I imagine it's apparent for most listeners for themselves, that we deem being upset as a lesser state. That this is not a good thing. A better you would never get upset. Of course, you're likely to get upset when your father-in-law goes into the hospital and you don't know if he will come out again.
Sorry, it's my stepfather.
Your stepfather,
Okay,
excuse
stepfather.
me.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Sorry.
correcting that.
Yes.
Your stepfather. But I did see some of that in the celebration. There were lots of people connecting in to celebrate, and it was very lovely, and it was lovely being with you and your husband, and it was lovely. Everybody was having a tribute for him. But if you look from window to window, if I look into the window of all the houses on my street at any given moment, there are going to be people who are upset. And if they're normal, they're going to try and pretend that they're not upset and put a good face on it. And then what you experience
is the upset that's underlying that good face. I remember once a couple came and spent Christmas with us here at our home. And we went down to the Christmas tree farm down the road, and we picked a tree and they cut it and we brought it home. And this couple was very lovey-dovey, but we were fighting.
and we're like, what
Is going
What's
on
going
here?
on?
Because we don't fight for the most part, and yet their smiles and their happiness and their pretending that everything was okay didn't translate, because underneath was an undercurrent of upset that was the most prevalent experience available.
Now, here's the thing. If you have the idea that being upset is bad, you won't embrace it. Of course, we'd all prefer to feel well all the time. But if there's a disruption in that wellness, it's informational. And if you embrace that and allow it, then you actually enhance your ability to be compassionate also. Because clearly the people around you are upset as well.
I'd like to talk about the 3 principles of instantaneous transformation.
Cool.
The first principle is anything that you don't want, don't like, disagree with, wish were to be different, like upsets, sticks around. Because anything you resist persists, it grows stronger, and it is what your life becomes about. Okay?
Cool. Yeah.
Second principle is you can only be exactly as you are. So when you're upset, that's the only way you could possibly be in that moment of your life. Third principle, anything you see without judging, like that you're upset, completes itself in an instant. So you linger in upset because you resist being upset, not because you embrace it and look at it and experience it.
Cool.
It's that simple, Naz. If you resist it, you're stuck with it. If you allow it without judging it, it completes itself instantaneously. It's over. But we're invested in being right.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're invested in that the past should have been different than it was, and that's why we're screwed up. But what if it's all perfect? What if the past was perfect? Your upbringing was perfect? Every interaction you ever had was perfect, and it all brought you to this perfect moment called now.
That's really, well, you're super intuitive, because I was actually having that thought yesterday.
Which thought was that thought?
Well, it was the idea that what if I wouldn't be here if the things in my life hadn't unfolded as they had.
Yes,
And it was just,
but here's
yeah,
the problem, sweetie. If you get lost in complaint, you end up complaining about what you've got, even if it's what you want.
yeah,
And I'll tell you, having a whole convoluted conversation with yourself is a way to sidestep feeling.
yeah,
I remember a year and a half ago, give or take, when my mother was close to death. And originally, my family, to the best of my ability, they're on the other side of the country, had said, "You don't need to come immediately. We'll let you know." And then the next morning, they called up and said, and I can still feel it. They said, "You really need to come now." And so we had changed our plans. We were going to the airport. When I got there, I got a call while I was in the line to go through security, and they said, "We don't think she'll be here when you get here. She's likely to pass before you come." Ultimately, it wasn't the case, but at that time, it struck me very hard because here I was and I couldn't change the circumstances, and I was really upset about it. And Shia was there, but you were in a different security line. Because we had different status, so he was in a different security line. So I was by myself and trying not to sob in the security line. And then when we came out and I saw Shia, and I started crying because I was, deeply upset. And a woman came and she touched me on the shoulder and said, "I don't know what you're going through, but I hope it gets better soon." And she walked off. And it was the most touching, amazing moment of heart connection. I don't recommend getting upset so that you can feel your heart. But if you keep stepping into where you are in any given moment, Naz, your life will keep expanding, even if there's deep emotions, because tied in that was the depth of my love for my mother, for my family, for Shia, for my dad, for everyone. So you don't want to miss you. And it includes everything you're going through right now.
yeah, yeah.
See, it's not about not being upset. It's about being where you are in this moment. It's not about getting somewhere. It's not about getting over anything. It's about being here.
It's interesting, Naz. I know that the people listening to this podcast, unless we change the format at some point down the line, will not have the benefit of seeing you, which we do because we record this via Zoom. You look so beautiful and so elegant, and I can see the emotions playing on your face, and you're a full-blown, exquisite Naz in this moment.
Exactly the way you are, not the way you think you need to be. And you should let yourself feel that, because
That's where your life is.
That's the richness of life, is in that feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us today. We feel honored. The cat doesn't feel so honored. She's kind of over there playing. She doesn't really care what you're up to, but
we do.
We do.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
It's time for our listener feedback spotlight.
Okay, so here we go.
We're going to hear from one of our listeners about how transformation has impacted her life or his life. Let's see.
Yeah. And if you'd like to learn more about what we're up to, you could register for any of our upcoming virtual courses.
Or sign up for our newsletter. Just visit
transformationmadeeasy.com.
It really is easy.
It is easy if you know the way.
Hello. Here's Renate from Basel. I want to tell you what I experienced through transformation. My life got richer because I found out that being in the moment is really very easy.
Do you want to have well-being with consistency? Connect with people all over the world from the comfort of your own home at Ariel and Shya's lively interactive Living Made Easy virtual seminars. Join any of their 2-hour online events or take a deep dive into the magic of being you at a virtual weekend seminar. Come on, let's connect. Find out more and register at transformationmadeeasy.com.
We have some upcoming virtual seminars, Living Made Easy. This weekend on the 16th, it's a bilingual one, Saturday morning Eastern time. And then on Monday night, the 18th, is our next Living Made Easy evening seminar. Originally, we were doing things in New York, and now we do it from all around the world. Special event on magical relationships, Monday the 8th. And then Tuesday, the 9th, evening time in the UK and Europe. And our next weekend virtual seminar is all about being moved by life, February 27th and 28th. And you can find out more and register for any of our courses at
transformationmadeeasy.com.
Okay. How about we take our next guest, shall
Yes, let's.
we? All right. Miss Wendy, you with us?
I'm here.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Wendy from Queens, New York. And I'm so excited to be on the podcast.
We're excited to have you.
Oh, thanks. I really like this topic, that life just gets easier. I recently got a new job and very excited, but it was one of the easiest processes, and it goes against my idea that I have to work really hard at getting something. So just things fell into place. But I went to give my notice at my old job, and I don't know, I wanted them to be more upset that I was leaving than they were. I think my boss kind of smiled because I did it over Zoom. So I caught that little smile at first. And I don't know, I guess I got myself down a hole of thinking it maybe, I don't know, that it was a better relationship than it was.
Well, let me stop you for a second. See, your mind is going to find fault with you no matter what you do. So if they were sad at losing you, you'd find fault with yourself for causing their sadness, and maybe you should have stayed. That they were okay with it is not okay. You know, that you're moving on. You know, in life, people come and go. People move on all the time. You know, this is a time we're in of shedding people. People are leaving, not through their own choice for a lot of them, but it's the way it's going. And so people have hardened themselves to loss. And so maybe was it a she or a he?
She.
Maybe she smiled as though she expected it, but that may have been a way of protecting herself from the loss of losing someone she really loves, which would be you.
That's funny that doesn't did not even enter my universe.
Of course that didn't enter your universe because you're not an objective universe observer.
Also,
You're a subjective universe observer. You look to see and how it relates to you, not, well, why did she smile? Maybe to cover the hurt of losing you.
or maybe 3 days ago, she had the thought, I think Wendy might be better served in another job. Or it may have been a confirmation of what she knew in her heart already.
Yeah. No, that's really accurate.
But part of where the discord is you grew up in a time, Wendy, where a loyal person got a job and stayed in that job forever, whether or not it was a suitable job. So even if it is in your best interest to move on, which by the way is in the best interest of your former employer, because then they will have somebody new, energized, and really loving to be where they are, at least potentially. I lost what I was saying, but
Well, it doesn't matter. Here's the point, Wendy. Change is upsetting. Period. So that you're upset about leaving, even though it may be the best thing in the world for you and for them, doesn't mean that change isn't upsetting. You're changing. Life is changing. Your job is changing. It's upsetting. You know, life is upsetting. Life is full of change. Now, the game is to dive into these things as though it's your idea. And then even though it's upsetting, it doesn't last as long. And it's not to get it over with, it's to get on with your life. You know, you can get stuck in those back eddies of upset, or you can flow down the river of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I like that analogy.
I love that analogy. That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like I got stuck on a rock of I think all of I could see the collide of I wanted it to work and them to be sad I was leaving, but in reality this is a better fit and I think it's going to be better.
Why should they be sad that you're leaving?
that's
a good question. It is a good question.
Why should they be sad that you're leaving? You're following your heart.
If they're sad that you're leaving, does that confirm for your mind that you did a good
worth,
job?
That you're worth something?
That you're loved?
I think so, because it felt like logically I knew like this is not good, but it was like, I don't know, it was like I was just went down this path that seemed, it just felt like I knew it logically, like this is great. You know, everyone's a win-win, but emotionally, I just felt like I was beating a dead horse, like trying to get.
Well, maybe it's like relationship. When a relationship is over, it's over. And you want them to feel bad that it's over.
Yeah.
But why should they? You know, look, if you tell the truth, life provides or presents us with challenging circumstances all the time. And if somebody leaves, well, then you just jump into the challenging circumstance that you need to deal with. So why be sad that they left?
Yeah.
But sentimentally, you want them to love you and miss you.
Yeah.
What's that song? Think of me fondly
when you say good night. Whatever it is. Think of me from Phantom of the Opera.
Right. Is that Phantom or Les Mis?
Phantom.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find it.
You know, it's interesting. Something you said earlier as you were introducing, you know, what you've been going through. You said you like the theme, life just gets easier. But the theme of this is it just gets easier. Life is a really broad overview. And of course, life potentially does just get easier. But the it, whatever the it is it's an amorphous term. But telling your truth gets easier. Moving on from a job gets easier. Being honest with yourself and your partner gets easier. It's not this broad thing. It's a singular thing. I bet your ability to create
has gotten easier.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, all of those things.
This new job, are they going to pay you more?
Yes.
Gets easier. Just gets easier.
Just gets easier.
Now,
Yeah.
obviously, sometimes people spontaneously fall onto hard times that are not of their own making, as with all the people who are working in different industries that shut down over COVID. But it was interesting. Recently, we got an email from somebody who had plans over the holidays to go visit his girlfriend in another country. And then the day before he was supposed to leave, his country closed its doors to that country because the COVID virus had mutated there. And it was interesting when he wrote the email to us that he had the best year of his life. It included all the hardships. It included all the things that weren't to his preference. It included all of the alone and lonely time. It just gets easier if you keep meeting it.
As a yes to as it's showing up rather than a no. Because again, we come back to those 3 principles of instantaneous transformation. When you say no to something, you get stuck with whatever you say no to. And life shows, that's the first principle. Anything you resist persists, grows stronger. Second principle is life shows up exactly as it does in the current moment. Well, your circumstances are exactly what they are. That cannot be changed in the current moment. It's just what they are. Third principle, if you are a yes to it, if you allow it to be what it is, not as a manipulation to change or fix it, but just see it non-judgmentally, it's over in an instant.
Awareness, a non-judgmental seeing, but also it has to do with honesty. And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is getting upset with the little smile your boss had via Zoom when you told her you were leaving, does that save you from feeling the loss of her and her company and her companionship?
Yeah.
Did you think to at least potentially express your caring for her, either in a card or an email or a thank you?
I had the thought, but I haven't done it.
It's not too late.
Yeah, and doing something like that is a gift to you and to her.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Because it's a completion for you, a completion for her. That she knows you don't dislike her. Because you see, if you had an employee who changed jobs, left, went somewhere else, wouldn't you think you had something to do with it?
Or maybe they didn't like you.
That's right.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah.
So it's not a personal thing, but it is something that you could allow her to forgive herself for anything she did or didn't do.
There was a book written by Somerset Maugham called The Razor's Edge. And we once saw a movie version of it with Bill Murray. And the character he played was an ambulance driver in
During
World War One.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happened during that is they lost a lot of people. They lost ambulance drivers. They lost people they worked with because they'd go out to where it was being bombed and to pick up people to try to bring them back to be rescued. And they had a habit of when they lost a ritual where they'd sit around and they'd go.
They'd badmouth the person who died.
Oh, he was so awful when he ate that entire villages of children could eat out of the remnants in his beard. He shall not be missed. And one of the things that always touched me about that is they purposefully said things that weren't true or were exaggerations and then said, well, he won't be missed, as a way to
not have to feel the loss of people you love.
And I have a feeling that little smile, taking exception to that little smile, is part of she shall not be missed.
Oh, yeah.
And the only challenge with that, or one of the main challenges is that when you close your heart like that, then you turn your heart to your new job, you turn your heart to your husband, to your cats, to your in-laws, whomever's around you, and it's just a little bit, that door's a little closed.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that.
But if
Yeah.
you see it without judging it, instantaneously, you're fully available. And I'll bet you if you go to write your ex-boss a thank you tribute, whether you send it or not, you will discover how deeply moved you were by that person's support of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. And thanks for coming on the podcast today.
And thanks for your honesty.
Mm-hmm. It just gets easier.
Just easier.
It does.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can always leave a review on your favorite podcast app. It helps other people find being here. And if you feel to do it, thanks in advance. Next week's episode,
Being moved by life.
I think we're off to a good start.
Yes,
We're ready
I
for
think
that.
we are.
Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. And we'll be back next week.
So come on back.